So earlier we were talking about like reading into narratives and so on, and like the themes and what games say intended or unintended and so on. What I found interesting is I watched a movie recently where all I could think about afterwards was its messaging and what it potentially was saying in its existence. I watched Evil Dead Rise like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh.
So I'm hot off the presses,
thought you were
ready to discourse, and definitely haven't forgotten half of it already. But the
I thought you were about to make a joke.
no, I watched the movie Evil Dead Rise, and I so first of all, it's fun. It's what I would
Okay.
expect from an Evil Dead, but I only just know the reputation of Evil Dead 2, the original one. I've just seen Evil Dead 1 and the remake of Evil Dead 1. I've never seen Evil Dead 2 or Armory of Darkness yet. But you hear about why people like Evil Dead, and generally speaking, Evil Dead 1's remake, I think a lot of people do like. At least, I don't know, Stephanie and Toaster like it, and those are the people that I have to go off of half the time for this stuff. Fuck the general public. The Evil Dead The Rise is interesting because instead of being a remake of Evil Dead 2, it's a sequel to the remake of the first one. So they remade the first one in their own style, and then they made a sequel to that instead of remaking Evil Dead 2, which is probably the right call, because you probably don't want to have to make a movie and just be compared to Evil Dead 2 the entire time, because that's the one that people specifically really like. But I found this movie, which was very fun and full of absurd scenes and like distressing. There's like both. It masters the tone of rapidly switching between being very stressful and distressing and just like off-putting, and then also just very darkly funny, which is basically the point. But it's also has like a weirdly conservative message, is what I came away from. Like very much like it seems to be against the idea of any kind of alternative family or alternative gender expression or alternative anything. And it's interesting because what I was hearing about this is that I was hearing people talk about this movie being very progressive and also basically a feminist film and so on. But I don't know if that's what the takeaway is. Because here, by my read, there are two types of horror stories thematically, for the most part. And I haven't spent hours thinking about this. So if there's other examples you can think of, that's fine, whatever. But like, generally speaking, when people die in a horror movie, one of two things is happening. One, you are expressing a genuine like danger or concern or real life force that is happening to these people, and they're victims of it, and the way that they're a victim of it is emblematic of a real life problem. So it makes a lot of sense to have a horror movie where you have like some kind of marginalized group that is being attacked by a metaphorical force that matches up with reality in some way. And that's a way of having a horror movie that isn't specifically like judgmental towards the characters themselves. But another way, the classic way of doing a slasher film, for example, is this weird this like stuff that's been brought on by the history of filmmaking and how like the Hays Code worked and everything, and other elements like that, was that like the people who do and don't die were often a judgment of those characters, and in the most pure
like
form.
Saw,
Saw was the villain judging them, but you're not supposed to like the villain. And over the course of the series, it's like
Saw is written,
corrupted and so on.
Yeah, that's true. But the first ones were kind of written as in.
It's supposed to be about. Saw's supposed to be like people that don't like. It's supposed to be about people that aren't like valuing their life enough, but it quickly becomes apparent that Jigsaw's just a fucking psycho. Not just because of the death traps, but also like his reads of people is incredibly uncharitable, and just he's just so bitter that he's dying of cancer that anybody who he judges unworthy of how they're leading their lives is somehow deserving of a death trap. In a lot of the cases, it's just like a deeply fucked up read. And also the people who like there's also these fucked up puzzles where, like, if I remember correctly, like the lady who had to get the key out of her boyfriend or whatever, like that was like, it was supposed to be a judgment of her, the trap, but like the boyfriend's the one that suffers that trap. So what the fuck, Jigsaw? But like, in slasher films, it's often like the formula would often be like it's like these teenagers or early 20-year-olds, and like the ones that do drugs or have sex and so on are the ones that die first, and the final girl is this pure person. And the direct inversion of this was Cabin in the Woods, where specifically the pothead survives to the end and all that stuff. Like, but like usually the when you're talking about these formulas, and this is stuff like Cabin in the Woods and Scream specifically will like talk about these formulas in the text, but like the final girl is supposed to be this pure, saintly, untouched character. That's the person who survives the wrath of the thing, and and there's also penchant for like any sexual minority or racial minority tends to die first, and then the people who have sex and the sluts die next, and you kill Paris Hilton in House of Wax, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times it comes across as the judgment of the people when they're being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found this movie interesting and strange because it's seen as progressive, and it does have a trans actor in it, and that's neat. But beyond that surface level thing, the read of what it's doing is distressing because it comes across as being against any kind of alternative family. So the introduction of the movie is that there's a woman who works as like an audio technician for a band or something, and she's doing a pregnancy test, and inherently you don't even have to know the results. Like the moment you have pregnancy tests in movies, you know that they're positive because that's the point of the scene. So she's established as being pregnant, and she goes to visit her sister and her sister's family. And so we already have this like career woman that hasn't been visiting with her family very much for all these years and has been distant. And then she gets to her sister, and her sister's like the cool mom. Like, I don't know how best to put it, but like her and her daughters and so on are kind of generally like, you know, when they have like the trad wife meme, and then there's like the other girl with the black hair and everything that's supposed to be seen as the bad example to the weird conservatives that make those memes. Like their whole family is kind of that girl, including the mom. Like the mom has like dyed hair, and she has like tattoo equipment in the household and so on.
Nice.
So like she's supposed to be the cool alternative person, and like her trans son is a DJ and shit, and they're like there's like they're all living their shit. And specifically, I don't think she's a divorcee. I think her husband separated, like her husband took off. So it's like, oh god, there's not a man in the house. What's going on here?
Oh no.
So like, and this could all be seen as cool feminist stuff on some level, but the way that the actual horror plays out, I think illustrates the opposite opinion, essentially. Like I'm looking at the poster of the movie right now, and it says "Mommy loves you to death," and I'm like, and what happens in this movie is that, spoilers for Evil Dead Rise from here on out, and probably the rest of the podcast because we're pretty late anyway. But at the beginning of the movie, after it's established that the sisters have been distant, and the main character sister is pregnant, and the mom sister is separated from her husband and everything, and we meet the kids and everything, and I think it's supposed to be seen as bad that like she sends the kids out to get pizza, like one of them with the car keys, like, oh, you shouldn't be taking them out or something in the city or something. She goes out into the elevator and gets possessed.
There's men out there.
So she goes out into the elevator and she gets possessed in a horror like sort of hybrid like death possession scene, and so she becomes the antagonist for the entire movie, because that's what more or less happens in Evil Dead movies, is someone gets possessed. But it's specifically a mom like attacking and transforming her children. And I don't think I have to explain the subtext there that much, like especially in modern discourse about like trans trending, and like people that think that like every gender expression or alternative sexuality is parents indoctrinating their kids, because conservative ideology is that you can't come anywhere near my kids and you can't tell me how to parent, but also I can tell all the leftists how to parent because I know better, and they're all corrupting their kids. Is this whole bizarre approach to how the discourse works these days? And specifically, her kids are there's a trans boy DJ. There's a kind of like let's say like tomboyish middle child girl. Like she has short hair, and she's like very like sardonic, sort of Daria-ish, and like a little standoffish and muted. And then there's the younger girl that is the generic little girl in every single horror movie. So she stands out a little bit because she doesn't have any kind of like alternative vibes to her. She just is a little girl in a little lacy dress or whatever, and she like plays with toys. Of course. Her main thing is just that they do all like fuck around and like play in the house and stuff. So like she's established as being a little weird, but she presents as traditionally feminine in a way that stands out compared to the other kids. And so how do I put this? In the possession scene where the mom gets possessed in the elevator, comes back in, and before anyone really knows what's up, or like the reveal that something's wrong, she grabs this basket full of eggs and just keeps throwing them all onto the skillet one by one, and just burns this giant nightmare skillet of eggs, of just every single egg. And she keeps going until she's completely out of eggs while chanting, and then it gets knocked on the floor and everything. So it's like, in a thing about children and pregnancy, like we've already introduced pregnancy because her sister is pregnant, and she has 3 kids herself. She's burning all of her eggs as the opening like villain thing of this movie, and then she attacks her own children. And at one point, the way that she converts one of the kids is that she stabs her with a tattoo gun. So she specifically attacks somebody with a thing that is seen as like a thing that's inappropriate for someone to do to kids, is tattooing. And like,
okay. I think your read is interesting.
I'm just like, there's such specific metaphors here where it's like your choice of imagery in a horror movie is always pregnant with meaning. Like it always has like a context to it. Like you can use anything. You could grab a fucking fire poker or a fire hydrant or a fire extinguisher or anything. Like there's infinite ways to stab or bludgeon somebody. So when you choose really specific things, and it's like, okay, like here's me burning all my eggs, here's me attacking my kid with a permanently altering tool that changes them for life and so on. Although you can like remove tattoos in other ways, but like a tattoo gun specifically just feels oddly important when you're already in the context of all this headspace of like what they seem to be doing here. And what I found interesting is that by the end of the movie, the mom's already possessed. The 2 kids that are less traditional in their presentation are both possessed and killed, and the 3 of them join into an amalgam that is now hunting after and trying to convert the youngest daughter that is the most like traditionally feminine character, basically. And then when the sister successfully defeats the amalgam by blending it in like a wood chipper thing, like a tree disposal thing, she then walks away with what seems to be this newfound thing where like since the movie started with her being busy with her career and having this inconvenient reveal that she's become pregnant, and then she's going to her sister for guidance, it feels like the implication at the beginning of the movie was that she's probably thinking about getting an abortion. But at the end of the movie, she very specifically is like not only walking away with a new adopted daughter that she's going to protect because the rest of her family's dead, but she's also going to like keep the baby, is the implication. And I'm like, like it feels like this movie is about the corrupting force of like liberal moms, and how it's like this, and it ends on like a pro-life message essentially. Like it feels like that's the thematic meaning of the entire film, and I just don't know what to do with that, because it is a fun film and it was cool like in its actual like horror and everything, but I'm like, most horror is expressing something thematically if it's not just mindless and lazy, and this is too consistently full of imagery and themes that line up with each other that it doesn't feel like it's on accident. Like, and one of the most I forgot one of the scenes that really stood out to me was that when it's near the end of the film, before they escape their apartment down to the parking complex where the final encounter happens, the possessed mom pounces on her sister and like sort of like makes her way down her body, and because she's talking about devouring her soul, but then she gets down to the belly of this newly pregnant mom, of this newly pregnant woman, and says 2 souls. So it's like specifically making a point to imply that the probably too early to be viable fetus is already has a soul, and implying the specifics of like why it would be immoral to kill to get an abortion. And this is before this like despite that being the villain's words, she does then like wood chipper all of the corrupted parts of the family, rescue the daughter from her family, and then choose to keep that baby specifically. And yeah, like the fact that it specifically becomes a thing where like the main character essentially opens up an escape, and then the daughter gets snatched when they're about to escape. It very specifically sets up this imagery of the daughter being stuck in this space as the looming amalgam of her corrupted family is all coming towards her to then convert her, like this is like society or the thing or something. And it's like that specific imagery really screams like this character is this uncorrupted youth that you can still save while she's young from this family that's too far gone. And I'm like, this this feels on purpose. This movie feels like it's doing it on purpose.
You make it sound like it is, and I'm inclined to believe you. I just want to correct that it's not a fetus; it's an embryo.
Yeah,
fetus requires it's a lot later. I mean, if you're doing pregnancy tests, that is.
I know there's like 10 parts of this where I was like choking on exactly which terminology would be contextually correct while I'm trying to get the idea itself out.
Yeah, that's way too many.
Like
it makes totals. It makes it's too much to be just a coincidence. I think it sounds like they're just trying to tell the story of what you're saying.
Yeah,
man, I definitely don't. I definitely feel that I do not take movies even remotely that seriously.
Well,
there's people every time I talk like about any movie like this, someone gets pissed. Like,
I'm not
just
mad
don't think about stuff.
Yeah.
No, I know you're not mad. I'm just saying like people are like, shut up, stop thinking about the thing. Mario's supposed to be stupid. Mario's a dumb movie. Mario's bad movie on purpose. That's the point.
No,
they did hire Illumination, so it's not like they didn't.
Showgirl's a bad movie on purpose.
I'm just surprised about like I in my head I'm thinking like, yeah, of course they would by default do the thing where like the demon's like, oh, 2 souls, because like it's a baby or whatever, and that's like the joke of like, yeah, there's like another life in you.
But that's in isolation though.
But it's I meant like it's normal to it's very normal.
It is. Even Dark Souls does that.
The default assumption is that like you have another thing in you. You have something living in you, and it's like it just, I don't know, it's weird to I guess because of the way that I look at
but the point is it's not in isolation though, it's in connection with everything else.
No, I'm just saying that like that is like my first instinct of hearing that would have just been to fall back on like, yeah, that seems tropey. That seems like what you would expect to hear.
But it's just that even the tropey movies have a similar like point to them though. It's like how more or less the point of Alien is to express the fear of sexual assault to men. Like that's basically
I just don't.
One of the
I could.
That's not
you
the
can
point
say that, and I would be like, yeah, okay, I can understand that
the through
interpretation
line between the assault and impregnating of all of the male characters with the face huggers and everything.
It is, but it's also the point is also to show that corporations treat people as disposable. Like it's one of the tools. It's definitely.
Alien's one of the more layered things ever.
Yeah,
there's a lot happening in Alien. Yeah, it does have corporate commentary, but it also is about that. Like that is the design of the monsters.
It is, yeah, 100%. And even down to things like, I mean, there's a lot of sexual undertext, subtext to a lot of the aggressions in Alien. Like, for example, the magazine thing, which is just wild and easily the worst part of the movie. But not because of what it is, but just because the acting is terrible. It's like, oh, I'm watching a movie from '74. Do you know the one where
I can't remember this very very clearly.
the android
Magazine?
attacks? Yeah, the android attacks Ashley, or not Ashley, Ripley, and tries to choke her with a magazine by deep throating her with a magazine, a rolled up magazine.
Oh, in Aliens.
No, the first Alien.
Was there an android in the first one?
Yeah, the one played by.
There's always an android. There has to be an android.
They're blurring together for me
on the cruise.
I don't remember his name, but the one played by the Bilbo
Lance
actor.
Hendrickson, isn't it?
I forget his name.
Wait.
Yeah, that's like
every time I have to recall names live, I like destroy my own credibility of ever being smart because I'm just bad at names.
He plays Jack the Ripper and plays Bilbo, but yeah, the don't remember the scene with the head where they have a bunch of cum, like it's white. I mean, I don't know if that's the subtext in that particular.
Yes, all the androids have jizz blood.
Yeah. I don't know if that was on purpose, but it might have been as well. It doesn't.
But no, because
I
think it just
the Alien franchise is
synthetic blood.
It's about the exploitation of labor in human bodies, and that comes through, and that's made so thoroughly that the alien themselves do that in the assault sort of way, while the corporations do it in the let's throw human lives at all of our problems and for profit way.
Yeah.
There's no winning in that setting.
No, that's one of the types of.
I beg to differ. Ripley seemed to have won pretty well. She
got cryo frozen.
Ripley does not survive the Alien movies. I don't think she
not
won.
all of them, but number 2.
It's interesting because Alien is one of the types of horror movies that is related to natural threats to people. In this case, natural being corporations. and also aliens.
But anyway, audience, that's my review of Evil Dead Rise. It was good. It was a good time. It has funny, crazy scenes. It's a lot to watch. It was very entertaining all the way through. But I came away with it from just a real weird vibe about what the fuck its point was, because it feels too much. It feels like too much of a through line to be coincidental. But also, I'm like, why would that be what they're going for? I don't understand. Like the same movie that hires a trans dude to play a trans dude and does like so much right is also seemingly making the opposite argument with all of its doing. So I'm just saying, if you watch this movie, let me know if you come away with a weird vibe or not. It's a weird through line.
I mean, they do that all the time, though, right?
Makes
you want
to go back and like find like check out like what was being quoted at various points. There's various parts of the movie where they read a book or like a real life book, or they quote something from something, like in their demon chanting and stuff. They're like quoting like something else, like a poem, and it makes me want to go back and see those scenes or have transcripts of those scenes and just be like, does this play into what's happening narratively? Does the prologue play in? Because I'm not sure if that was just like a cold open to be like, and there's evil, or if it also ties into what was happening in the main narrative. But the whole movie made me go,
It's good when they do that.
That's the point of a movie, I guess. It's supposed to make you think.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want it to be making people think in that direction.
Yeah.
So that has worrying implications.
Then that's your job, to write a script, make a 3-hour video about it, and inform the masses.
I considered it, but I don't have access to the movie, and I'm not fucking watching it in theaters again every time I want to think about it. So for now,
well, you're not gonna be like Jenny Nicholson, just go to the movie 4 times.
Jenny Nicholson, I don't know how she works. I don't know how she does that. She has very thoughtful videos that she makes very quickly in many cases. And it feels like she literally just watched a movie once, came home, and had like the most fucking like involved takes possible. And she also like
she cosplays.
Her videos
she goes back to
like her
the theater multiple times.
Her videos are so well spoken. She sounds scripted, but she doesn't seem to be reading from a script. So I also don't know how she records her videos. It tripped me up. Like I don't know how she's.
Isn't she? Wait, what are you talking about? She's sitting right in front of the computer with the script open.
She does.
I guess I just don't understand people who can sit there and look at the camera separate from the script, or just like wander, their eyes just wander around the whole video, and I'm like, how the fuck? No, how are you not reading the script? What the fuck?
Because she's memorized it. I think she memorizes like a page of it, records it, and then continues. Like she breaks it. She breaks
it's
up
so
the
much
stuff
work.
People told me that
my
my style was too stiff in the Annihilation video, so I tried to like print out the script and like memorize chunks of them at a time, and then like do some variation of like either speaking it off the cuff or like paraphrasing it. Completely impossible. I 100% cannot do anything even resembling that. Like I literally had to give up, delay my recording of my Monster Hunter video by 2 weeks so I could order a teleprompter and then do it and then try again with the teleprompter once I figured out how to make that work, because I could not do any version of that whatsoever. It was impossible.
Yeah, that's fine. It is definitely like it's definitely a fucking skill. Some people just have that ability. But yeah, that's definitely like, that is definitely the way that she goes about it. You can see like in a lot of any of the videos where she has her glasses on, you can see the script is right there in front of her on the computer screen. And like the way that like her cuts are so obvious. She has like these really obvious cuts where she's clearly like, okay, and that's it. She doesn't remember, like that's where her memorization of that page ends. But yeah, I remember she was talking about that she got mad at a movie because she had to go back like twice or something just to get notes, because like so much was happening. It was hard for her to like take notes of the movie. She was like, I go and watch the movie once and then I have feelings about it, and then I write down those feelings, and then I go back to the movie and watch it again and write down things that happen in the movie, and then combine those two feelings and the things that happen in the movie. Which sounds like sounds like a pretty exhausting process. Going to the movies twice just to like do your job is sounds like a lot of work. But it's funny. It's just like
once you have any level of audience, I'd be terrified of talking about anything without having like double checking it, because I don't want to be that guy. I just don't want to be like just blatantly horribly wrong about stuff on the internet. I'll never recover emotionally. But anyway, guys,
it's so easy to be though.
I think it's about time to wrap this up. So this has been Dialogue Choices. Bye.
Don't come back. I swear to God.
Please do come back.